Welcome to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davis, and it is official. The White Rabbit is here. We did not have to wait 2 days, and he has the whole world in his hands, breaking down the entire Extreme Rules event from this past weekend, Bray Wyatt's future in WWE, and remembering the 25 years of Kane that was so instrumental and can never be duplicated. All of that next on this edition of a Mic Drop Monday. I'm excited for this. We got to get underway with Bray Wyatt is the White Rabbit. If you missed Extreme Rules, sorry for the spoiler, but it was a great show. And before we get into Bray Wyatt, I just want to compliment the game, Triple H, for his tremendous work the last couple months. He took over once Vince McMahon retired, and he had SummerSlam, which SummerSlam had Vince McMahon's fingerprints on it. And I said on the show, it's going to be a Clash at the Castle where he really sets the tone. You know, we started it before SummerSlam with Karrion Kross appearing 5 days after StarCast. This was about a week before this was about a week into Triple H's reign as the chief content officer in charge of all creative content. And we saw it with Damage Control coming in at SummerSlam. And Clash at the Castle was his first big pay-per-view. He had all his fingerprints on it because SummerSlam was it was halfly booked by Vince McMahon. So you kind of have to continue that path. But wow, Clash at the Castle reminded me of an NXT takeover. And then you follow this up with Extreme Rules, where I already commended the game on making Extreme Rules extreme again. If you remember last week, we did a Facebook and YouTube live video with my friend Sato of Infinity of Wrestling. You can follow him on Instagram. It was a great episode. Thank you for so much for the turnout of that. But Extreme Rules was extreme again. And the entire night, fans were craving the impending, hopeful return of Bray Wyatt, the Eater of Worlds, and didn't know what we would get. And to be fair, I will say WWE swerved me a bit because there's been the theory going around that the White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, his clock is 2 days late, and that would lead to Monday Night Raw. And as soon as Riddle won the steel cage or the fight pit match with Seth Rollins, the watermark shows up on the bottom of the screen. And here I am like, WWE did this. We not wasted because it was a great show, but I sat through 3 hours and we're not even getting Bray Wyatt. And then the lights go out. Michael Cole, are we still on air? And then all of a sudden, everybody has their flashlights out. I reach over, turn off my lamp, have my flashlight out as well. And he's got the whole world in his hands and the place goes crazy. But then we see some characters. We see Huskus. We see Mercy. We see Alice. We see the Firefly Funhouse characters in real life, in costume, in the crowd before we get a sneak peek into what was the Firefly Funhouse. It was destroyed. We see the Beacon of Light, which is obviously a tribute to the late, great Brody Lee, one of the big friends of Bray Wyatt. And then we see Bray Wyatt emerge with the classic lantern. And I tell you, the crowd was so loud. Philadelphia, I don't like you in sports. I hate the 76ers. I hate the Eagles. I think you are the worst fan base when it comes to sports. But you delivered. You delivered this weekend. And we couldn't even hear Bray Wyatt say his trademark, "I'm here," because the entire crowd was going absolutely crazy. They were deafening, and I would have loved that was the one time I would love to have been in Philadelphia. I probably will never step foot in the place. But Bray Wyatt is here. And with that said, the initial Raw reaction is, wow, perfectly done. WWE recently hired someone who worked for Marvel as a long-term creative writer. So that means he's going to be involved in a lot of storytelling, and I believe he's going to be working very closely with Bray Wyatt now that Bray's return. This return was done perfect. It was done incredibly well, and it all started with the White Rabbit being played at live events and during commercials that fans started to catch on to. We started seeing QR codes, and every QR code, it really had Bray's fingerprints all over it. And that's why we got excited when Friday on SmackDown, we talked about this in the live video with Sato. It was let me in, let me in, let me in with the pig that is obviously Huskus the pig. Wow. Just absolutely incredible. Thank you, WWE. Thank you, Triple H. And we have Bray Wyatt back. I know some are over the moon ecstatic. I know a lot of you are fair weather fans. A lot of you are turncoats. I hate it because I've supported Bray Wyatt ever since he was in the rocking chair, wearing a fedora, Hawaiian shirt, managing Harper and Rowan back in NXT before the WWE Network days, places you'd have to go to links for to watch NXT in the early days. But man, I am happy. I love that Bray is back. There's a lot of speculation now that the Firefly Funhouse characters is now a potential stable, the Wyatt Six. I can see that. I don't know who they are. When I start thinking about it, I've heard rumors of Bo Dallas returning. I think Bo could work well in this group. I wouldn't want Bo back in any other fashion, but he is the real life brother of Bray Wyatt, the son of IRS Mike Rotunda. I think Bo could fit well into this. Mercy the Buzzard, he had the same build as Grayson Waller. Maybe Grayson is in this. There's been links that Huskus is actually Joe Gacy. I don't know if I want Waller and Gacy in this faction. Here's why. I feel like Waller is a star in the making. He's done some great stuff in NXT. He's done great crossover matches with AJ Styles. He's had something going on with The Miz, kind of secretly, having the Grayson Waller effect as kind of like a spoof on the talk shows in WWE. I feel like Waller could do something. Gacy, he's doing some stuff with Dyad, the Schism. I feel like you could keep that going a little bit. But if Gacy joined Wyatt, I wouldn't be opposed. I feel like he'd be a great addition. And then who's the witch? Is it Alexa Bliss reuniting with Bray Wyatt? I feel like she's been teasing a darker character in the past few weeks. She tweeted out, "Welcome back, old friend." Is it Liv Morgan? Liv Morgan, we're going to talk here in just a second about how she lost the SmackDown Women's Championship to Ronda Rousey. She was smiling as the official rang the bell. Her Twitter is now blocked out. So, I mean, this could be an interesting thing. Who could Bray Wyatt's first feud be? That I'm not sure. I don't know if you insert Bray into a rivalry right now. I feel like you can't pigeonhole, especially with the Firefly Funhouse characters. For Bray Wyatt to be used fully and effectively, you need him dispersed throughout the show, just like you've had the QR codes. That's my opinion. But again, I am not as creative as Bray Wyatt, but he is back. And speaking of Rousey and Liv Morgan, this match has gotten a lot of grief. I loved the show top to bottom. Incredible show by Triple H, WWE at Extreme Rules this weekend. But Rousey, I called it on the live video with Sato. I called Rousey winning this. We're going back to Saudi. Saudi's probably wanting Ronda Rousey to fight because she's the biggest name draw in WWE. Still, we saw a teaser for Charlotte Flair. Maybe she comes back, maybe not. But I could totally see Rousey and Flair at Saudi or Survivor Series potentially. Some of the gripes with this match were some spots didn't work out. Like there was a chair in the corner, and before Liv could use it effectively, the chair fell. And Michael Cole pointed this out on commentary. But these are the moments I give wrestlers a little bit of leeway, okay? Because yes, I'm so excited that Extreme Rules was actually extreme again. Every match has stipulation. And sometimes that's going to mean weapons have a mind of its own. And for that reason, that's why there were a couple missed spots in this match. But that's okay. We have grace to give in those instances. We have grace to give to AEW when that happens, because it does happen in both companies. It happens everywhere. And it was very interesting to see Liv smile at the end. I feel like this could be leaning towards her joining Bray Wyatt in a potential Wyatt 6 faction. But, who knows? And the women's matches, I was like, okay, one of these two matches main event. They didn't. Bianca Belair and Bayley in their ladder match was actually, in my opinion, my least favorite match of the evening. Bianca Belair retained against Bayley in a ladder match. This was the match that kind of underdelivered and slightly in a way. I just don't think that one-on-one ladder matches hit anymore. I feel like ladder matches have evolved over time. We mentioned WrestleMania 10, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Intercontinental Championship Unification ladder match. And ever since that time, that's a historic ladder match, by the way. If you are a wrestling fan, you've never seen that match, go back and watch it. If you have seen it, I still recommend watching it. It's a great ladder match, but it's evolved over time, right? WrestleMania 21, we had a 6-man ladder match for a Money in the Bank briefcase that Edge won would later cash in. And ever since, ladder matches have evolved. It seems like everywhere you turn around, it's a 5-man ladder match, 6-man ladder match, 8-man ladder match, cross promotions, AEW, WWE, Impact. Impact even tried the Ultimate X match. They've tried the King of the Mountain match. But one-on-one ladder match just doesn't hit as well as it used to. And you get the good and the bad from that, because 6-man, 8-man ladder matches are high spots. They are. And maybe I was personally hoping Alexa Bliss could return. Something could happen where Bayley wins the titles. I feel like Damage Control's time, all holding the gold, is coming. I feel like that is coming eventually down the road. But as of now, Bianca Belair is still Raw Women's Champion. Neither of those two women's matches main evented. And what opened the show, honestly, set the bar. The Brawling Brutes and Imperium fought in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match. And I posted this on my Instagram story. They really said, follow that. Follow what we just did. And this was perfectly done. The Braun Brutes get a win over Giovanni Vinci, taking the fall there. And as great as this match was, Gunther retained the Intercontinental title against Sheamus in cheap ways. Braun Brutes get one over on Imperium. I feel like this feud's ran its course. I could watch this all day. Don't get me wrong. I'll go back and watch this match again. They took something that could be so silly as a Donnybrook match and made it perhaps the best match of the night. I would say it's match of the night. I don't know if I give it 5 stars, but if I don't give it 5 stars, I give it 4.5. Dave Meltzer, that's my opinion. But absolutely stole the show. I feel like they can, just split away after a great series and come back to this maybe around the Royal Rumble, around WrestleMania, around next year after Mania. But break away, do your own thing until this has been beaten into the ground because I don't feel like Sheamus gets a rematch for the Intercontinental title. I'll watch, but I don't feel like that's the direction. Karrion Kross going over Drew McIntyre in a strap match. Big time win for Karrion Kross. I said on the show that it was obvious he needed to win, but yet they protected Drew McIntyre too. Can this feud continue? I don't think so. I feel like you go your separate ways. Kross is trying to go through the entire roster. Drew McIntyre is trying to find his way back to the World Championship. I feel like Drew McIntyre and Gunther could actually have a really good rivalry for the Intercontinental title, maybe going into Survivor Series. Maybe McIntyre does something with Roman Reigns in the Bloodline at Survivor Series. There's really good direction that they could go with this, but I feel like Kross and McIntyre needs to be a one and done. And, one thing that fans were probably hoping this would end the rivalry, but it's nowhere close. And it was Finn Balor versus Edge in I Quit match. And I said on the live stream last week, Edge loses this match, but they have to find some way for him to lose. And I had a really strong feeling they were going to pull Beth Phoenix into this. And they did. And it was done perfectly. Edge, the momentum was swinging his way. The momentum swung Judgment Day's way, back and forth. And it felt like Edge had finally gotten Finn Balor right where he wanted him. And Beth Phoenix comes in. And Beth Phoenix is vulnerable. She's put in the position for a concerto. And Edge, to save his wife, obviously said, I quit. But Finn Balor was like, do it anyways. And so Rhea Ripley hit the concerto on Beth Phoenix. This sets up a mixed tag match, either at Crown Jewel or they set up for Survivor Series. But that's going to be the big payoff. Edge and Phoenix versus Rhea and honestly any male superstar of Judgment Day. You could put Finn Balor there, but I feel like you should put Dominic Mysterio here, especially with the ties to Dom and Rhea, the ties to Dominic and Edge. Perfect right there. And the match that did main event, probably the least likely option I had, was Riddle and Rollins. It was an interesting choice, and I've been going back and forth why. It was a personal rivalry, but so was Edge and Balor. It had nothing to do with Bray Wyatt at the end, as far as we know. Seth Rollins has also blacked out his Twitter, as well as Liv Morgan. It was probably the ropes. If you look at the fight pit, they took the turnbuckles off. They took the ropes off. They lowered the cage-like structure around the ring. It was probably just so they didn't have to reset all that for whatever would be the main event. Apparently, they were going back and forth between Riddle and Rollins and Belair and Bayley. And if I had to choose between those two after the fact, I would definitely go Riddle and Rollins. But I was holding my breath for a very dangerous buckle bomb spot on the top of the cage structure. And they referenced the Hell in a Cell match between Mankind and The Undertaker. That was scary. And that could have went really bad. Seth hitting a buckle bomb against the cage at the top. If that cage breaks, something goes wrong. Riddle is seriously injured. And Seth talked about this recently, that his Hell in a Cell match with Cody Rhodes earlier this year, with Cody with the torn pec and bruising all up his torso and arm, that rebuilt Seth's reputation as a safe worker. And it could have been ruined in a split second last night. I love Seth as a worker. That spot should have never happened. It was really scary. I held my breath for a buckle bomb right up there. And it wouldn't have even landed on the announce table. It would have landed on the barricade, in the fans, on the hard concrete floor. It was a really scary spot. Thankful Riddle was okay. Rollins was okay. And Riddle wins and moves on. Seth Rollins has a United States Championship match later tonight on Monday Night Raw. We're going to be talking about that when we come back. But first, we'll have a Sports Entertainment Spitfire. Yes, we have that segment back. So stay tuned next on Drop the Mic. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. And if you saw on the bomb ticker, we were teasing this segment for the entire first one. You know, we had the Extreme Rules analysis. We had Bray Wyatt coming back. But now it's our time to return this segment from last week. We had Johnny on the show, and we did a little Sports Entertainment Spitfire. And I feel like this would be a really cool segment to carry over into today. We have first in AEW, the National Scissoring Day, and that party that showed up was really cool. They did that perfectly well. I had a lot of people texting me. They're like, whoa, you were right. In the last few weeks, I've said they made scissoring cool. And talking to a buddy of mine earlier today at work, I was like, in the 90s, you had the Too Sweet, you had the crotch chop, you even had Austin's middle finger that were overpopulated with pop culture. And the Acclaim's doing the same thing with scissoring. I don't know if it leaves the niche audience of wrestling, but they're doing really good with it. And later on, we're going to talk about Billy Gunn getting a match against Swerve Strickland. That match was set up here. The only gripe I have with this segment is when Mark Sterling brought out the papers. You know, Max Caster and Anthony Bowens had the giant golden scissors, which was a great part. Well, when Mark Sterling brought out paper, I'm like, you're telling me you can't cut that? But Mark Sterling, hilarious on Rampage, saying that ever since his National Scissoring Day, his groin's been on fire. And I don't even know if that's PG, but we're going to try to keep this a PG podcast. And one thing that AEW is concerned about, Andrade and Sammy Guevara having an altercation backstage. Andrade was originally slated to compete against Preston Vance on the anniversary of Brody Lee's last match in AEW, which, by the way, is so cool that Bray Wyatt returned pretty close to Brody's anniversary of his last match, his last pro wrestling match. That was a really cool thing. But Andrade's mask versus career with Preston Vance didn't turn out. Andrade pulled from Rampage after his altercation with Sammy. And it was an interesting view of the end of Dynamite. Sammy Guevara and Chris Jericho, the Le Sex Gods, facing Bryan Danielson and Dane Garcia. Le Sex Gods actually go over, which was a shock to begin with. But at the end of the show, the Jericho Appreciation Society actually holds up Sammy Guevara in a very victor's-like shot. And I was like, this was kind of insensitive to what's going on. I love Sammy Guevara. I love the Jericho Appreciation Society. But I feel like Sammy Guevara is that guy who's constantly causing trouble. We want to talk about CM Punk. Let's talk about Sammy Guevara, who has beef with Andrade, who has had beef with Eddie Kingston. And I believe I'm missing like one or two more. And Sammy Guevara's even been talked to, disciplined for stuff he said, altercations he's had with other talent. I feel like this was very insensitive, poor timing to have Sammy Guevara first win the match, second get the pinfall, and third be hoisted up by Jericho Appreciation Society, who it would have worked just fine to hoist Chris Jericho because it is the Jericho Appreciation Society. And this really puts into question, is this it for Andrade? There's been a lot of talk, a lot of question whether Andrade would be going to WWE. His wife is there. Triple H is now in charge. And it's back and forth. I feel like this could be a good idea for both parties if AEW was able to buy out Andrade's contract, let Andrade go to WWE, where his wife is, where Selena Vega is. If you notice on the bottom of the screen, our YouTube viewers, we have Zelina Vega back with Legado del Fantasma. And you could pair Andrade with Legado del Fantasma. Legado debuting on SmackDown this past week, and they were all wearing their masks, but everyone knew who it was. I wish that the team of Michael Cole and Wade Barrett on SmackDown, they debuted new commentary teams, and Wade Barrett from NXT is joining Michael Cole for this debut, and they're acting like they have no idea who these guys are. And you know exactly who they are. Santos Escobar wearing his El Hijo del Fantasma mask. It was pretty obvious who it was, but Zelina Vega is the one who debuts with the faction. I heard rumors before, and I was against it. I really was, and we talked about this a little bit on the live video with Sato right before Extreme Rules this weekend. I was against it until I saw Zelina Vega with Legado. I'm like, okay, it makes sense. I wasn't even a fan of Elektra Lopez before, she was doing her thing with Legado. I feel like Elektra probably stays in NXT. You could have her do something with Zion Quinn. I don't know. But I'm starting to see Zelina Vega with Legado del Fantasma working, at least till they get legs or Andrade comes back. I don't think Andrade works in Legado. I feel like Andrade and Santos would clash, but give something for Zelina to do until the hopeful pending return of Andrade to WWE programming. And I'll say this, Legado's future is in good hands. It's been a long time coming for their call up to the main roster. Long time coming. But for Legado to have Triple H at charge rather than Vince McMahon, I feel like their future's in good hands. I would love to see the Brawling Brutes and Legado del Fantasma duke it out. Have Imperium face Drew McIntyre, Gunther and McIntyre fight out for the Intercontinental title. And with the Brawling Brutes, you put Legado del Fantasma in there, and SmackDown is building their tag division slowly but surely. And speaking of slowly, maybe not so surely, Impact Wrestling had Bound for Glory during this whole Friday stuff where there was a World Trios title match. There was an All Atlantic Championship match. Pac winning both, by the way, and Death Triangle was the Trios match. And Bound for Glory decided, let's do Friday instead of Sunday. And let's compete against SmackDown and Rampage and Battle for the Belts. And Dirty Dango appeared. Bully Ray appeared. Bully Ray might be competing against Josh Alexander for the Impact World title. Put a few eyes on there. We'll see if Bully Ray can still go. That would be interesting. But Impact, you gotta quit. You air on Thursdays on a channel that not a lot of people carry, and you decide to go up against SmackDown, Rampage, and Battle of the Belts. Bad move, bad idea. You probably have a good product. And Johnny mentioned last week, there's no reason to think Impact has a bad product. We just don't watch it. And I would be remiss without mentioning the Kane, the 25 years of Kane. Kane debuting, 25 years ago with the Hell in a Cell spot with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. And I just want to say Kane's character will never be duplicated. And here's why. If you remember, The Undertaker was probably the best character in professional wrestling history. A lot of people will tell you that. Okay. And it's probably not up for debate. But every main character needs somebody to bounce stuff off of. Last week, I'm Ryan Solo this week, but last week I had Johnny. Johnny was a great guy to feed off of. For the Extreme Rules live video, I had Sato from Infinity Wrestling. Great guy to feed off of. Both will be back on the show. They were awesome. And I'm doing it alone this week, but man, I would love to have Johnny. I would love to have Sato. The Undertaker loved to have Kane. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. What if Undertaker has a brother that was destroyed in a fire? that's actually alive. And the way that Kane and Undertaker were able to work together, same size, if not Kane just a tad bit taller, it was perfect for the story they were telling. They were rivals, and with Kane having to be put down with 3 tombstones at WrestleMania, just instantly put him over, having them team up as the Brothers of Destruction. And I hear a lot of people say that they don't like that Kane took off his mask. And I counter with this argument. The Undertaker evolved. The Undertaker was very zombie-like. And then in the Attitude Era, he had the Ministry of Darkness. He was talking just a tad more, but he was still very dark, sinister. And then he becomes this American biker where, he's cutting promos with the best of them and acts like a normal man, to where he returns at WrestleMania 20 against Kane, ironically. And he's like a modified hybrid version of the two characters. And he was constantly able to evolve his character to stay fresh for 25, 30 years, to where people would still pay to see him. People are paying to hear him talk at these One Dead Man shows. Kane did the same. And I feel like Kane doesn't get the credit that The Undertaker gets for evolving his character. Kane comes in as Undertaker's brother, doesn't talk at all, has pallbearer, and then he evolves to where he's talking with this electric monitor up to his neck, doing this X-Pac tag team. And then he evolves to where he's actually transformed his mask to where he can just talk normally, to where he actually takes off his mask, I believe in 2003. And there you have a completely new version of Kane, to where I love the mask, but I almost prefer unmasked Kane to masked Kane. I know that's a hot take. I know that's for my wrestling segment on my sports radio show, Out of Pocket. That might be an out of pocket take. But Kane unmasked gave us great memories. One of my most fond memories was 2005, a rivalry with Edge. As I was watching Raw and SmackDown on a weekly basis, their Gold Rush tournament finals, where Edge actually had the Money in the Bank and didn't even need it. Kane constantly evolved his character. He had corporate Kane for a time, for crying out loud. And now he's Mayor Kane. He's actually Mayor Jacobs. Sorry, Mayor Jacobs. But yeah, I would say my favorite feud from Kane, obviously, other than Undertaker, could very well be his bouts with Edge over the years. When Edge was with La Familia and was doing that stuff with Vicky Guerrero, Kane and Edge had some good matches, had good matches in 2005. Those two worked really well together. I don't think that feud gets talked about enough. But Kane, his character will never be duplicated, much like The Undertaker. And I wish it was. A lot of people have tried to duplicate it. And even TNA, I feel like Abyss was trying to get that Kane vibe. And Abyss was great, don't get me wrong. But man, Kane is top notch. And when we come back, thank you, Kane. When we come back, we will have our famous wrestling rap segment. We'll have our Rose, Thorn, and Bud. And what we have happening this week next on the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davis. And as you can see on YouTube, I didn't go anywhere. And you can follow us on our social media. We are on YouTube. We are on Spotify. We are on Facebook. And we are on Instagram. Now, the reason you need to be following those 4 accounts is YouTube. YouTube, we will post this podcast very first thing on YouTube. That will be the first place you can find this podcast and get it in the best time possible. Spotify, okay? If you are on a run and you can't watch a video, you don't have YouTube Premium, it won't let you play videos in the background. Spotify. We were on Spotify at the very beginning. We stay on Spotify. The only podcast episode not on Spotify is the very first episode on YouTube. I feel like that was very special. So if you're going for a run, if you're working out, Spotify is perfect. Facebook, just like we did this past weekend for Extreme Rules. We did a Facebook Live video. It was also on YouTube, but Facebook Live, we did an Extreme Rules preview with Sato. We're going to be doing that for big pay-per-views. We're going to be doing that for Crown Jewel. We're going to be doing that for Survivor Series and Revolut, like all the pay-per-views that you could think of for WWE and AEW. Those is where we'll be doing those. And Instagram, I update my story pretty constantly. We're going to be posting various content throughout the week. We also are going to be debuting a few things on our Instagram very, very soon. I cannot announce those yet, but I'm very excited for that. But guys, this is our last segment of the episode, and we have our famous Rose, Thorn, and Bud segment. And can we just start with our Rose? Actually, let's start with our honorable mention, because I believe our honorable mention is Pac. Him wrestling not once but twice in a night, back-to-back title defenses, Death Triangle beating Dark Order in the main event of Rampage, and then you start Battle of the Belts with Pac and Trent Beretta, and Pac just he was killer. He won both matches the same with the hammer, and he was just for him to go, gosh, like each match was maybe like 15, 20 minutes. So that's anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes. He was constantly going and didn't miss a beat either. He's our honorable mention, but our Rose, how could you say anything else but the White Rabbit reveal with Bray Wyatt? I don't think you can. I really don't think you can say anything bad about Bray Wyatt's return. A lot of people are making fun of his wrestling ability. He is the best storyteller in wrestling right now, bar none. And it's only going to get better as they let his creative juices flow. My Thorn is probably the Thorn of the Bud. Okay, so a Bud is, I'm looking forward to D-Generation X's reunion tonight on Monday Night Raw. And I'm looking forward to Billy Gunn having a one-on-one match with Swerve Strickland. I think that'll be pretty nasty, and I'm excited for that. But the thorn of this is, while Billy's going to be on television with AEW, he's probably not going to be on the 25th anniversary of D-Generation X. It'll be Triple H, it'll be Shawn Michaels, it'll be Road Dogg, it'll be Sean Waltman. They're probably not mentioning China, and they're probably not mentioning Billy Gunn. They may even throw a poke at AEW. And why not? I mean, why wouldn't you throw a poke at AEW? One, this is what DX did with WCW 25 years ago. And B, you're just doing the best stuff of your time. Like, I believe the tides have changed. I said a few weeks ago the tides were changing. But after this weekend, after WWE was able to secure Bray Wyatt back, the tides have changed. The two major releases by WWE during the pandemic era, the two head scratchers were Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt. And within a month, Vince released both of them. And within a month, Triple H got them back. It doesn't get better than that. It doesn't get better than that. What I'm looking forward to this week is tonight we have the DX anniversary, DX reunion, of course. We have Johnny Gargano versus Austin Theory. Finally, I'm back and forth on this one. I feel like Austin Theory would need the win to solidify himself, but he has Money in the Bank. And I don't see Johnny Gargano losing this early. If he does, it's going to be to Austin Theory. but I feel like Johnny Gargano wins. We have AEW Dynamite this week, and it's Bryan Danielson versus Chris Jericho for the third time for the Ring of Honor World title. I'm actually not happy with this. Here's why. This will be the third time we've seen it. And I feel like unless you're ending this with Bryan and Jericho right now, you don't have this match right now. Have it in a month. Have it in 2. Have it at the next pay-per-view. Have it at Full Gear. Like, why have it now? It feels a little rushed. I feel like there's legs on this, but I also feel like it's kind of getting old. So hopefully this is the end of Blackpool Combat Club, Jericho Appreciation Society. Have Jericho Appreciation Society do something else. Have Blackpool Combat Club do something else. That could be what's happening. And the season premiere of Monday Night Raw tonight, we absolutely got swerved last week. I'll admit it. I could have sworn WWE advertised last week as the season premieres, but they only advertised SmackDown season premiere. And they were advertising Raw season premiere like 3 weeks in advance. And the season premiere is actually tonight after you catch this episode on YouTube. Tomorrow will be on Spotify. So it's season premiere of Raw. The Bloodline appear. I'm looking forward to that Bloodline segment. As long as Sami Zayn and Jey Uso are on the TV with Roman Reigns, I'll be watching. I don't think Logan Paul shows up, but I'm kind of intrigued. Does Kevin Owens come on screen and start working towards a potential Survivor Series match with the Bloodline? I feel like this could be the move. I feel like this could be the move for Survivor Series. We're getting War Games instead of the traditional 5-on-5 match. That's what I'm seeing here. I believe also this week on Dynamite, we have Tony Storm and Hikaru Shida versus Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. I am hoping that they can start redeeming some of this women's stuff. Saraya coming and joining AEW. Awesome. Perfect. Okay. In the weeks that followed, it didn't help. Saraya may have lost a step on promos. Perhaps one of the worst promos of her career and one of the worst promos in AEW history. It was a complete dud. But if they can save it from good tag team action, which you have 4 of the best women you have on the roster competing this Wednesday, I think it helps as long as you keep Saraya and everyone else off the mic. Maybe Britt could salvage it on the mic. And we also have Pac and hopefully Orange Cassidy. Yeah, we have Pac and Orange Cassidy in a rematch from their AEW Dynamite Grand Slam. Orange Cassidy has a fire on him. And as I said, Pac was my honorable mention for Rose. But, man, it's got to be Bray. I'm so excited for Bray. I'm so excited for WWE this week. Not a lot on NXT that's piqued my interest this week, but we'll still watch. We'll still watch Raw. We'll still watch SmackDown. We have to figure out what's happening next with Bray Wyatt and the potential of the Wyatt 6. Thank you so much. Again, follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Facebook, Instagram at Drop the Mic Wrestling. This has been another Mic Drop Monday. I've been your host, Michael Davis. Enjoy some wrestling, and just for everyone, it would be better to let him in. Have a great week, guys. See you.